Hi folks, it's Andy and welcome to today's Kendo rant. Bit of a unusual one today. I ran out of time at the office. It's the first day back at school for the kids today, so I'm here on the school run. So I'm just waiting for them to come out, and I'm filming the Kendo rant whilst I'm waiting. So yeah, it's a bit of a different one today, so it'll probably be a bit shorter. I can't read the questions out loud, sort of verbatim, but I have read them before I left. I have memorized them, and I'll do my best to answer them right away. So the first one I want to talk about is in response to what I talked about in the last video about the Shimpan. We talked about how Shimpan sort of it tends to often be a kind of same group of Shimpan that are of a sort of older generation that maybe learn the sort of basics of Kendo, or the sort of criteria of Yuko Datotsu and what have you several years ago, and maybe they, with Kendo evolving and what have you, basically that that leads to a sort of mismatch between the competitors, modern competitors' idea of Yuko Datotsu and the actual Shimpan's idea. Now, go and watch the video. It's the last one. I think it was about improving Zanshin. I think the title of it was. But if you go and watch that, you'll get the full sort of answer on that. But basically, my sort of stance on it is that the criteria stays the same, even though that some of the things are a bit different. But obviously, outside of Japan, it's not ideal. Now, the reply comment to that, which I thought was really good, I'm probably covering the mic there, that I thought was really good, was that about, it was in Italy that the person was talking about, and they have the same problem, and often, because it's always the same group of Shimpan, they're always the same sort of 20 people or so doing Shimpan at every tournament, kind of can tend to get to know that there's certain techniques that they like and certain ones that they don't, which kind of affects your own competition, because what sort of starts happening is perhaps you have a particular waza, like you mentioned actually in the comments Hikido and Katate Men, and Hikido is a perfect example because I have a lot of experience with that too. It's one of my favourite waza, but since I came back to the UK, I hardly ever get scored, even though I scored it a lot over in Japan, because the Shimpan here have a different sort of understanding of the criteria of Yuko Datotsu, especially for that waza. And yeah, you mentioned that you felt like, do you kind of stay true to yourself and still carry on doing your Kendo even though you're doing waza that the Shimpan might not like, or do you kind of sort of bow to the will of the Shimpan, as it were, and kind of carry on, and kind of change what you're doing to kind of suit that, which is, I know what you're saying. But my sort of response to it is neither. What you don't want to do is you don't want to be a one-trick pony. You don't want to just have one or two waza that are the only ones that you can get to work in any situation. That's not ideal. So whether it's even Shiai, Jigeko, grading, what have you, you don't want to just be relying on one waza. So like me, for example, like I said, Hikido is a really good waza for me. I really like using it. I often am able to hit it, but since I came back to Europe, I often don't receive get awarded the points for it, because the Shimpan here sort of operate on a slightly different understanding of Yuko Datotsu, shall we say. But that doesn't mean that I don't use it anymore. Instead, I incorporate that into my strategy. Okay, so I'll still hit the Hikido, and if I don't get awarded the point, well, it can still become part of my strategy. Perhaps it will help me later score a different waza. So if the opponent, for example, knows that I've hit his Hikido and he thinks himself, "Ooh, crikey, that was a close one," or "That was a good do, I'm lucky I didn't lose a point there," then they're going to be sort of wary of being hit on it again. So that might set me up for a different waza, like Hiki Katsugi Men or something like that. Yeah, I mean, don't just put all your eggs in one basket and be like, oh well, if that doesn't score, then I can't get any points. You have to use that in your own strategy as a way to get your own sort of points across. You know what I'm saying? That's my sort of thoughts on that, really. Another question was I got by email, which I thought was a really awesome question, and it was about Debana Kote, and it was on the back of the video I did about Debana waza. And there were two questions in it. The first was that how do you know when the men is coming, or how do you get to, you know, press the go button, as it were, which was the words I used about making them to hit men. And the thing is what you've got to do is you have to build them up. It's not something that's going to happen straight away, all right? Sort of people have different tells really that give you an idea of not just what waza they're likely to do or attack next, but sort of kind of what frame of mind they're in. So some people kind of get a bit trigger happy, kind of get really agitated, they kind of want to hit men. Some people are a little bit calmer, but still you can get an impression of what's likely to happen next. Now a lot of that comes with experience. It's not something that's going to happen quickly, but also you can kind of guide the match in that direction, if that makes sense. And that's really what you want to do. So you can kind of use your seme and your own sort of interactions with the opponent to try and build that tension between them, between you and them, so that they're starting to feel like they want to attack your men. Yeah, you're kind of trying to get them into that trigger happy mode, as it were, so that when you start pushing out with that right foot and they sort of feel that they're at breaking point and they want to attack. Now there's lots of ways to do that, but you have to kind of, like I say, it's going to come with experience, and it varies from person to person, so you have to kind of go with experience on that one, I'm afraid. And then the second part of your question was about how you felt that you were often hitting the tsuba when attacking Debana Kote. Now there's a couple of reasons for that. First is that you could be hitting too late. If you hit too late, then the opponent's hands are already up a little bit too high, and then that's where you tend to get that strike on the tsuba instead of on the actual kote. That's one thing. More commonly though, is it's more likely that you've probably got a little bit too much tension in your right hand. If you're kind of gripping the shinai a little bit too tightly, or using your right hand a little bit too much to swing the shinai, and it happens a lot. It's a really common problem, especially with Debana Kote, because Debana Kote, people often kind of attack, not I hesitate to use the word panic, but they kind of jump to attack, oh now kind of thing, and they suddenly sorry, I just dropped the phone. I'm having to hand hold it, as you can. They kind of tense up for a second, and then they attack. So what happens is that there's that tension comes in the right hand as they come in to hit, whereas you've really got to make sure that it's much more relaxed, and you're in control of the situation. And if your right hand is tense, that's when what happens is the shinai doesn't fly straight, you tend to fly diagonal, so that's where it's going to hit the tsuba. So one, you've got to relax a bit more. Make sure that you're attacking through your own intention, and it's not through kind of out of surprise or like kind of, you know, in that sort of timing. You have to make sure you're totally relaxed and that you're attacking in your own timing. Secondly, one thing that you can do is you can slightly, very slightly, as you do the humikomi with your right foot, you can bring it over to the left slightly so it's in line with your opponent's right foot. And that will make it a little bit easier for you to hit straight on the kote, as opposed to on the actual tsuba. Okay, so that's something to bear in mind as well. So yeah, that's my sort of thoughts on that. Okay, like I said, it's going to be a short video today because I'm not reading them all out, and I'm parked outside the school. So last one, it was a comment. It was a recent comment on the YouTube video from someone that said they're living in England, and they decided to start Kendo, but their Kendo club their local Kendo club only accepts beginners once every 2 months, and he just missed the starting course, and the next one's not for 2 months. Now, my advice there, first off, the first thing he said is, sorry, carry on with the question. The first thing he said is what you should do in order to kind of prepare yourself to make an impression on the first day. Well, to be honest, the first thing you should do is you want to get in touch with the club, get in touch with the Kendo club, and tell them that you're interested in starting Kendo, and that you're sort of really willing to start, but you just missed the beginner's course start and are wondering if you could still join in. It's possible that they'll let you join their beginner's course if you're only sort of a week late. So definitely get in touch with them. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. And if they won't, then just start in 2 months. What you don't need to do is you don't need to kind of, you mentioned as well in the comment that you were like skinny. You don't need to bulk up or anything. You don't need to do any specific exercise or any sort of mad preparation or anything like that. So don't worry about that. Just like I say, you're better off. The best thing you can do is if they won't accept you straight away, and you've got a couple of months to kill before you can start, or even if you know they'll let you go next week, what it'd be great for you to do is just get on YouTube and watch as much Kendo stuff as you possibly can, right? Obviously we've got stuff on the Kendo Show channel, but go and watch as much as you can elsewhere as well, like Kendo matches and what have you, just so that you can get an idea of what Kendo is like. Obviously Kendo is a really unusual activity and it's very different to what most people expect it to be. We do a lot of stamping, we do a lot of shouting, it's a lot harder than it looks. You know, there's a lot of things that are a little bit unusual about Kendo that a lot of people don't really expect before starting, and it's probably the biggest reason why a lot of people quit, because it's not what they were expecting. So the first thing I advise you to do is get on YouTube, get an idea of what Kendo really is and what it looks like and what it's all about, and what you're getting yourself into, if you know what I mean. And I think that'll be the best sort of preparation you could do for anything like that for starting Kendo. Okay, so I think that'll do for today. A little bit of a shorter video. I'm probably better at keeping them at this length, to be honest, but it's a little bit more informal. I mean, it's an informal series of videos anyway, but I'm literally shooting this out of my car. But I wanted to get something up. I am a bit pushed for time today, but I definitely wanted to respond to those questions. I definitely wanted to get something up, so do excuse that. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you'd like to talk about in the next video, any questions, stuff like that. Like, subscribe, share, all that stuff, what have you. And yeah, don't forget to do your shopping at KendoStar, because that's what keeps me in business. Yeah, that's what keeps me able to do all this. All right, so that's KendoStar.com. Okay, and other than that, I'll see you next time.